You are here with Pedal Reviews. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on the controls and various functions of the Hotone Verbera. I found a lot of other demos that go through presets and show off sounds, but not really a comprehensive video on a deep dive into how the pedal functions. So that is what we will be focusing on today. The Hotone Verbera is a guitar pedal that can combine convolution reverb, which are IR captures of real-life spaces, with an algorithmic reverb that Hotone refers to as XR. I've seen interest expressed in hearing just the XR reverb on its own, so I will demonstrate that later in the video. The Verbera can store up to 1024 of your own IRs. The length of those IRs can be 10 seconds in stereo or 20 seconds in mono. It comes with 100 factory presets and allows you to store 100 of your own presets. Verbera can be controlled via Midi, and references for doing that are in the manual. You can control multiple parameters on the Verbera via an expression pedal. In order to hook up an expression pedal, you will need a 1/8 TRS adapter. I will demonstrate how to set up expression pedal control later in the video as well. The power requirements on the Verbera are out of the ordinary for most pedals. It requires a 9-volt center negative at 1 amp. It does come with a small power supply for the purpose, but if you plan on integrating this with a pedal board, make sure you take that into consideration. As far as I/O goes, on the top of the pedal, we have a audio input. This can accept TS connections for mono or TRS for stereo input. And then we have a left and right output. And then of course our power jack here, which the power supply connects into. And then we have a USB Type-C connection for hooking up to the software editor. On the bottom of the pedal, we have a MIDI through 1/8 connection, and then a MIDI in expression input as well. So today I'm just going to be connecting up a mono to stereo setup. So I'm going to take my 1/4 input, which is just TS. I'm going to connect that to the input, and then I'm going to connect my 2 outputs to the output jacks. We'll then go ahead and plug in the power supply. We'll make sure that I have sound here. When the pedal boots up, it's going to be in preset select mode, which is indicated by these 2 lights being lit orange. You can scroll back and forth through the presets by pressing either the right to scroll up or the left to scroll down. If you want to toggle between the preset and operation modes, you just press both foot switches simultaneously. You'll note that the light is no longer lit on this side. Now the function of these 2 foot switches has changed. The left is now an engage or disengage for the pedal itself, and the right is an engage of the freeze function, which freezes the algorithmic reverb, and we'll get into using that later. So by default, when the pedal boots up, you're going to be controlling the convolution reverb of whatever preset that you're on. And you know that because the lights will be lit orange. In order to toggle and go back and forth between adjusting the algorithmic reverb and the IR reverb, you just press the Alt menu here. And the lights will light blue, indicating you're editing the XR or the algorithmic reverb. So you can switch back and forth simply by pressing this button. We'll stay on the IR reverb for now. Let's go back to the spring reverb setting. So this is what this sounds like by default. Okay, let's switch to the algorithmic reverb, and I just want to turn this down for demonstration's sake. So I'm basically turn the mix of the algorithmic reverb all the way down. We'll go back to the convolution. The controls on the convolution This is controlling the decay length. So you can put it full bore, or you can adjust it down to be very, very short. We'll just go ahead and leave it at 10. The attack control is kind of like a swell feature when you're dealing with the convolution reverb. It's the difference between an immediate attack when you pick the note and something that swells in. We'll turn the mix up so you can hear that. The tone control is interesting. We'll keep the mix up pretty high. Below noon, it's a high cut, and above noon, it is a low cut, but it never actually adjusts the high end past noon. A neutral setting, we'll go ahead and hear that. If we put it below noon, that's going to darken the signal. But if we put it above noon, it doesn't necessarily brighten it from the neutral setting. So we'll stick this at 0 to hear it again. Now, let's hear the low end. Pay attention to what happens to the low end of the reverb here. So as we crank this up, it thins the low end. But it does nothing to the high end. So that's how the tone control works. Just be aware that you're not really brightening the signal past noon. You're just cutting the low end of the reverb. Next we have the mix control, which just controls the mix of your reverb. For the convolution reverb, you can control the mix of both of them, but when you're lit orange, you're doing convolution. So we don't have the algorithm mix turned up either, so you're just hearing the dry signal. And it can go fully wet. The next control that we have is IR, which lets you both sort and select your various IRs. Anytime you're in a preset, you can use the IR knob to scroll through your various IRs that are loaded on the pedal. If you want to sort by various things, you can just press the IR button, and whatever you have displayed there is what it will be sorting by. You can do it by all sorts of weird things like brightness or attack, but I like to just keep it on name. And then this knob lets you cycle through your various presets if you want. Now let's turn the mix of the convolution reverb all the way down and switch to our algorithmic reverb. On the algorithmic reverb, you can control the decay, which is again the length of the reverb tail. And you'll note that the length can go a lot longer than 10 seconds or 20 seconds if you're running just mono. You can control the pre-delay, which is the time between when you attack the note and the reverb sounds out. So this is no pre-delay. And this is a lot of pre-delay. And that goes to a maximum of 1.5 seconds. You're able to control the modulation of the algorithmic reverb here, but you can only control the depth of it. You cannot control the speed, so I'm going to go ahead and crank this to 800 so you can hear what the speed is. So next I want to show you the freeze function. So in order to use the freeze function, we need to disengage preset mode. So we'll go ahead and do that now. This button now acts as an engage for the freeze function. Now one thing to note is this is just freezing the algorithmic reverb. And when you engage this, it's going to switch to the other reverb so you can play over top of whatever you've frozen. So just to demonstrate this, I'll go ahead and play something. Now, you'll note that on the other reverb, we turn the mix down to 0. So when I play over this, you're not going to hear any reverb on the signal that I'm playing. That's because the mix is down. If you want to hear reverb on the signal, you can turn that up. The decay length of the freeze phasing out is directly tied to the decay length you set for the algorithmic reverb. So if you want that shorter, you can make the decay length shorter. And if you want it longer, then you can make it longer. So that's pretty much it for controlling the convolution reverb and then the algorithmic reverb. In order to enter the global menu, you can press and hold the Alt menu button. You can use the preset knob to scroll through your various options and press it to select them and then change them. So up at the very top, we have an about that shows the firmware version that you're on. Then we have an input selection. You can change between auto, mono, or stereo. You then have the control option, which lets you set between expression and Midi. You can turn your global trails on and off. That's when you disengage the pedal. Is the reverb going to ring out or immediately be switched off? You can choose your USB MIDI channel and your TRS MIDI channel. And that's pretty much it for the global options. To exit the screen, you can click the clone button or back. And last but not least, control-wise, we have expression pedal setup, which you engage by pressing both the clone and the alt menu buttons together. You can then set your expression pedal in the heel down position and adjust whatever parameters you would like to adjust. You then press the clone button to do the toe position. So you can then set these wherever you would like. And then press this again. Make sure you have the expression pedal actually plugged into the pedal. So we'll go ahead and plug this into the correct jack. And with our expression pedal, as I'm rocking it there, you can see the values change. And then to exit here, we can simply press these two again. If you want to disable what you've done, you would set the exact same knob position for the heel and the toe position. So let's go ahead and set something on the algorithmic side. Go ahead and set the heel position to mix 0, tone 0, and then we'll switch to the toe position, and we'll switch mix to 800%, toe to 100%. And we can see that set there, so we will exit. And we now have that set to the mix and tone control, controlling multiple parameters. Now everything can be saved here in a preset. So if you want to save something to a preset, you go ahead and press the preset switch, then put it into a slot that you want. So we'll go 119, and then you name it. You can change your character by simply rotating the wheel, and to rename a specific character, you press it again, and then you can choose the various characters that you want. So we'll just go ahead and name some garbage stuff here. And then you can either hit cancel on the Alt side or clone for OK on the right side. We'll go ahead and hit OK. So now we have preset 119, which is what we've named it. And if we go to an init patch, so that is our preset saved. It doesn't look like there's a documented way to reinitialize a preset. If I find one, I'll comment that in the comments of this video. But I'm sure with the editing software, you probably just copy presets from one location to another and just take an init preset and do that. But I'm doing this portion of the video before I've even explored the software editor, so if there's a way to do that, we'll cover that when I do the software editor. So really the last two things, just going through presets again. If you want to use the scroll method, you can make sure the preset scroll mode is engaged and then just use the left and right to cycle through them. And you can also just use the knob to scroll through the 200 presets. Sometimes when they implement knobs, they aren't really responsive and they're still a pain to use. But I find this one's really easy. It goes as fast as you want it to go, so it's very easy to scroll ahead really quickly. You don't constantly have to use the foot switches to go one by one. The last function that we have to go over is the cloning function. I've color-coded the cables here so you can more easily see what's happening. We're running the output of the Verbera into the input of the reverb that we want to clone, and then we're running the output of that reverb back into the input of the Verbera. If you were doing a stereo pedal, you would have the two outputs coming back through a Y cable back into the input of this pedal through a TRS connection. The prerequisites for cloning this pedal, you want to make sure the mix is all the way up if you can. If your reverb is able to take out all of the dry signal, you want to set your reverb pedal to do that. And you also want to make sure if the reverb pedal has any type of modulation that is turned down completely. Then you want to set the reverb pedal however you would like otherwise. And when you have something you like and you want to clone, you want to press and hold the clone button, which will start the process. Then you can either cancel or start. We want to start. And now it will clone the pedal. So once that is done, we can either delete the IR that we've created, or we can save it. We'll go ahead and save it. And then you can name it whatever you like. I'll name mine God Mode Room. Once you're done, go ahead and hit OK after you've done the IR. I've already done this previously, so I'm going to cancel out of here. But then you should be able to use the IR knob to then load the IR that you've created. So this is the one that I created previously called God Mode Room, and I've now got it loaded. And that's all there is to the process. So we want to go to Hotone's website and install the software. So we'll go to Support and then Software. Then we want to scroll down and find the appropriate Verbera software link, either for Windows or Mac, depending on what you're doing. I'll be doing Windows here. So it's downloading the software. Go ahead and open that up. It downloads in a zip file, so we want to extract that. So we can right click and go to Extract All. This will extract it all into a folder. We open that up and then we can execute the installation. Then we just follow the prompts to install the application. Now we will go ahead and launch the program. When it first launches, it's going to detect if you plugged it in via USB and pop up a Windows Explorer folder there. You can go ahead and minimize that. Now that the application is open, it will pop up a warning basically saying If you don't see the changes reflected on your pedal that you're making here, then go ahead and power cycle the pedal and you should see those changes. So now that we've got the Neon Collector software open, let's go to Setting up here. On the Software tab, you're able to change the font size, the software language, and also check for an update to the software. You can update the firmware of your pedal on the Firmware tab. You can also save a backup or load a backup. We'll go ahead and save a backup now. You can go ahead and click OK once that's done. It'll show the most recent backup time over here on the left, and then you can load the backup that you made. One thing to note is that this does not allow you to take multiple backups. It will only let you load the one backup that you have taken. We'll go ahead and cancel that. Here is where you would update the firmware. As we can see, we have the latest version. And then if you need help, you can load the manual here or do a factory reset. Another thing to note over here on the side, you'll see the firmware version that you have running, and you can also see your storage capacity here. So that's it for the Setting tab. We'll go back to Manage. On this screen, we are able to manage our presets. We can import presets or export presets. Let's go ahead and export a preset. We'll click Export Preset. We will find our Verbera folder that I've created, and then we can select that folder. You can then choose which presets that you want to export. We'll just do one. It'll tell you it's successful. And if you want to import a preset, you can click Import, and then click the preset that you want to import, and click Open. Then you select whatever location you want to import that to, and click Import. And then you are done. We can scroll down here to where we imported the preset, and we see it is loaded there. You can also reorder your presets simply by dragging and dropping them. You can right-click on them to copy them, rename them, or delete them, and also paste if you've copied one. So very easy to manage your presets from the software, and the same goes with the IRs. On the IR tab, you also have a favorites column where you can click and favorite the IRs. You can play them, and you can also see how long they are. Over here, if you either right-click or click the three dots, you can import, export, rename, or delete. If you export an IR, it will export it in .HRIR format, but you can import just regular wave IRs. So if I go into my convolution IRs, I can pick one. And it will import it. Then I can search it here. And we can see that I've imported this previously, so if I want to get rid of the duplicate, I can right-click and delete it. And then I see the one that I imported there. Now, one thing to note, as shown in that warning message at the beginning when you launch the program, if your pedal isn't reflecting what you've uploaded, just go ahead and power down the pedal and then power it back up, and you should see the changes on it at that time. And that's about all there is to the Neon Collector software.